Good, whatever time of day it is, fellow fantasy footballers. It is I, your commissioner and your host, Jeff. I usually use my last name, but you know who I am, and if you don't know me and you're watching this video, I'm not going to give you any personal information about myself. But why would you be watching this video unless you're part of the greatest fantasy football league, Warrenton's finest fantasy football league? Welcome to the Week 2 recap and Week 3 preview. How have there already been 2 weeks of the NFL? I don't even know, but enough of my rambling. Let's get on into it. Let me just say, fantasy football may be both the greatest and worst thing that's ever existed. I've tried to, my son was asking me what in the world I was talking about as I bored the ears off of my wife telling her about what was going on. And if you ever want to see how pointless fantasy football is, try to explain it to your 5-year-old son. If you don't have a 5-year-old son, try to explain it to my son. All right, well, let's go ahead and get on into this, because this was, again, I just think one of the most ridiculous weeks. Talk about drama. Talk about upsets, upset people, upset games, gruesome injuries. More on that to come. First off, the second lowest scoring team, me, was going up against Team Queen, and it was projected to be, I believe, Team Queen by a few points was the advantage. And then it just so happened that every player on my team decided to do what I thought they were going to do when I drafted them, and that was score a lot of points. So Team Queen, apologies, but you did lose 148.3 to 100.5. Now, Hannah, you've scored, I think you had plus 100 points last week. If not, you were very close because of the Dallas defense. And yet you're 0-2. That's unfortunate, but keep scoring those points, and eventually you'll I think you've gone up against the 2 highest scoring teams each in week 1 with Sean, and then week 2 with me this week. So that's kind of tough luck. That's just the way that it goes. You didn't really have much that you could have done. So that's the good news. There was no move that you could have done that you would have won. So that always makes you feel better. So moving on, because there's definitely a ton of people, my next person in general, who could have done something differently and had a much different outcome. We're moving on to Uncle Touchdown, who's taking on Team Touchdan. Both of these teams are riding high, 1-0. And Uncle Touchdown scored a whopping 128.24. Everyone seemed to perform very well. DeAndre Swift was actually, no, he wasn't. Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. Who would have thought? I guess all those TV commercials didn't ruin his career. It just didn't work out in Cleveland, which, big shocker there, right? Anyways, Mike Evans, 27 points, and you had, DeAndre Swift with 26.6, so that was fantastic. And Dan, you had more points on your bench than I think Carlos and Mike scored combined. If you look at your bench, you had Christian Kirk, 17.4, Daniel Jones, 31.7, now, this other guy, there's no way you could have known. Jeremy Ford on Cleveland with 23.6 points. Michael, more to come on that later. So, you could have won. You could have won. You probably should have won, but you didn't win. So congratulations, Sean. You are undefeated. Moving on, we've got the Weasel taking on the slightly above average team. And this was a very interesting game. Pretty much from the get-go, the projected points on this one and throughout the entire course of Sundays and Mondays games, the projection was basically identical the entire time. Nobody wanted to win this game between the Weasel and the slightly above average team, who happens to be 0-2 now because, spoiler alert, you lost. I think I said spoiler like 3 times. Greg, that's my new phrase of this week. Having said that, let's keep on going. Jason, you're stashing a lot of points on your bench there, buddy. Puka Nukuka, 23 points. K Williams, we don't know what the K stands for. I could click on it, but I don't want to. 25 points, but the Weasel also had a lot of points on his bench. Who are these people, guys? I'm not going to be good at fantasy football. I don't know who any of these people are. N. Collins, 25 points. D. London, 15 points. P. Nakua, 23. K. Williams, 25. I don't know who half of these people are. I got no chance. If I didn't win this 10 years ago, there's no way I'm ever going to win. Anyways, the Weasel eked out Jason 89.4 to 86.5. Jason, you started a defense that got you -2 points. If you had just not played that defense, you still would have lost, but by 1 point. If you had played a defense that did anything, maybe even stopped a single person and tackled somebody, you might have won. So, unfortunate there. Speaking of bad defenses, Greg, the Wanakee Squirrel Salads took on Gone Fishin', and this was one where Greg was pretty much favored through the beginning, and then Gone Fishin' remembered. Now, Matt was the lowest scoring team last week with 65 points, I believe. Congratulations, Matt, for doubling your point total. Winning 132.56 to Greg's 126.26. And Greg, you played, this was the kicker for you. Well, not the kicker, it was the defense for you. -2 points playing Houston's defense, going up against Indianapolis. If you had played your Buffalo defense, which isn't Bills Mafia, like aren't the Bills known for their defense and Houston's known for losing games? So interesting choice. But that was the difference. If you had done that, they scored 11 points, you would have beat Gone Fishin'. As it was, you lost. You're no longer undefeated. More on that later. Moving right along, bye week. Brandon taking on Michael, the undefeated, starting now. It was to infinity and beyond. This game was wild, guys. I don't know if you guys are paying attention, because I think everybody muted me on Discord because I type too much during games. But Sean, I appreciate the company there, buddy. And Greg, you too. Just stop making fun of me as much. It's cool. This game, going into the Monday night game, I believe I was texting back and forth with Michael saying, hey, both your teams get to win this week, because your projected win going into Monday by like 20-something points, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And what happens but the most horrific knee injury that we've seen since someone had a really bad one last year, I think. Anyways, Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt is potentially signing with the Browns waiver wire. But Nick Chubb with just the old yuckos on his knee. And he had 6 points for you already. You were looking great. And then all Brennan needed to have was for the Cleveland defense to not give up a ton of points. And you know what they did? They gave up a decent amount of points, but it was enough. Bye week, 122.5 to Michael's 121.58, our closest margin of defeat yet. Less than a point. Less than a point. That's insane. I mean, it's shades of me having hope of Aaron Rodgers. Are you guys bored right now? I just got bored halfway through that sentence, so we're going to move on. All right. Team Midnight versus Field of Dreams. Thanks for changing your name, Carlos. I didn't know who you were at first. I had to click on it to see who this was. This was just kind of a real stinker of a game. 68.9 Mike to Carlos's 78.14. A 10-point loss. Mike, a little bit of advice here. Now, take it with a grain of salt, because you are our two-time defending league champion 2 times. So you probably know what you're doing. However, let me just say, you have 3 quarterbacks on your roster who all did score 20-plus points. There's a lot of people on this league that have quarterbacks that are averaging 3 to 6 points. So perhaps you might want to do a trade, because you have 3 people on the IR on your bench. You had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people out of your whole roster finished the week with 0 points. And yet your 3 quarterbacks all had 20-plus points. So again, my recommendation, maybe trade and try to get some position players that can score you points, because you got some dicey moves here. Also, IR, I finally got my password and login from Matt, so I'm going to try to see if I can get the IR position added, because I think that would be a helpful thing for our league. And we didn't have it last year. There's a lot of broken people, a lot of broken body parts just 2 weeks in. So I think an IR spot would be great. If I can't do it, I'm sorry. We'll do it next time. And then, Mike, you should probably drop at least one of those 3 people on the IR. Looking at the final standing projections, this is always fun. Just going to highlight a couple things. The trending up, Uncle Touchdown was projected at the beginning to finish 11th in the league. Right now, projected to finish first. Way to climb up 10 spots in 2 weeks. Defending league champ, projected to finish number 1, down to number 10, down 9 spots. That's not so great. And then we're just going to go real quick to the standings. Kind of interesting little pattern we got going on here. We have 4 teams that are 2-0, undefeated. We have 4 teams that are 1-1, middle of the pack. And then we have 4 teams that are unwinded, haven't won. So look at that. 4-4-4. So let's find out what happens. So looking forward ahead real quick, because I actually have to wake up in about 3 hours and drive 12 hours down to Georgia. So I'm very tired, or I'm gonna be tired. Week 3, we've got a matchup here. Slightly above average team going up against the Dallas Jeff Boys. Jason projected to win 111.4 to Dallas Jeff Boys 103.1. Boo. Team Queen going against Team Touch Dan. Hannah 110.6 to Dan's 106.5. But Dan play the right people off of his bench this time? Probably not. Next up, the Weasel taking on Uncle Touchdown, the battle of 2 of our undefeated teams. The Weasel 108.7 projected, Sean 112.3. Gone Fishing going up against undefeated starting now. Let's see if the 3rd name change of the year pays off this time. Right now, Matt's projected to win 104.1 to Michael's 102.5. Field of Dreams going up against the Wanakee Squirrel Salads. This is a nail biter, folks, at least in the projections. Carlos 113.0 to Greg's 112.8. And then the last game, an undefeated team versus a team looking for its first win. Team Midnight going up against Bye Week. 106.2 for Mike, 96.8 for Brandon. How about that? Very interesting. All right, folks, that is it for this week's recap. Make sure you guys check out, subscribe to the channel and click on the links in here. And if you want to be notified, hit the bell. Ding! Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Peace.